Welcome back, 8th graders. So we're going to start in on our graphing unit. We're going to start by refreshing on how to graph a point in the coordinate plane. So let's just first start by talking about points. A point is written as x comma y, and in order for us to consider this as a coordinate point, it has to have parentheses around it. Otherwise, it's just two numbers listed together. But if you put it in parentheses, then they become a point. Our x is our horizontal move, and our y is our vertical move. If we're looking at positive numbers, that means we're moving right or up, depending on where it's, if it's in the x position or the y position. Negative would be left or down. Depending on, again, it'd be left if it's in the x position, if it's a negative number in the x position, down if it's a negative number in the y position. And so that's just a reminder on how we plot a point. Other things is a coordinate plane is created by an x and a y-axis. We're going to talk more about these. And then the center point here, that's what we call the origin. And so that's our 0, 0, because x and y are both 0 in that position. All right, so then we also have quadrants. We always start in the positive quadrant for a quadrant 1, and they are written using Roman numerals. And so quad 1 is going to be a positive x with a positive y as our coordinate point. And then from there we go counterclockwise. So then quadrant 2 is going to be over here, where quad 2, where our point is going to be created of a negative x, see, negative x values, but a positive y value. And then we move on to quadrant 3. And in quad 3, we have both negative x, negative y. And then quad 4, in quadrant 4, we have a positive x but a negative y. And so what this allows is for us, like, if you think of it as the positive, negative, that type of piece, it allows you to look at the point itself and know what quadrant it lies in, instead of having to remember or like plot where the point would be and then figure out the quadrant that way. But you can do it either way. And so we're going to talk about graphing points. We're also going to practice figuring out what quadrant a point is in. So graphing points is simple. So when we graph point B, I'm just going to talk it through verbally and then we'll go graph it. This -6 means left 6, because the negative means we're going to go one of our negative directions. And since it's in the x value, that's a horizontal move. And so a negative horizontal move is going to be left. And then the positive 3 means up 3. So then we're going to go from the origin, left 6 to that -6, and we're going to go up 1, 2, 3. And then we label that point B. And then when we look at point C, it's a positive in the x value, so that's a right. So we're going to go right 2. And then we have a 0, so then we don't move, no move for our y value. All right, so I'm going to go right 2 from the origin, 1, 2. And that is my point C. Point D is, since it's a -6, that's going to be left 6. -1 means down 1. So we're going to be left 6, down 1. And so I put a point there and label it D. And then point E, +7, so that's going to, I tried to say up, right 7, and then -2, so that means down 2. So we're going to go right 7, so there's 6, there's 7, and down 1, 2. And so, no, go away. So that is point E. And then last but not least, point F. We're going to go left 10 and down 8. Because we've got a negative. So I'm going to go left 10, down 8. And so there is point F. So if we were to talk about like where these are quadrant-wise, B is in quadrant 2. D and F are in quadrant 3. They both had those negatives, right? Negative. B had negative positive. E is in quadrant 4 because it has a positive negative. And then C is not in a quadrant. We would call that the x-axis. So we didn't have any points in quadrant 1. In the next video, we're going to talk more about graphing and figuring out what quadrant points are in. Later, 8th graders.